everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to the show. I am still in the beautiful mountain town of Evergreen, Colorado, my hometown where I grew up, because tonight I am going to be speaking to an amazing group of high school and college students down in Colorado Springs at Summit Ministries, which is an amazing faith formation kind of summer camp for young adults and teenagers. I've joined Summit Ministries many times, and I'm so excited to share the love of the gospel, the love of God, and the love of sharing that with the world with this next generation. So please pray for me tonight for a safe speech. I am back in the home studio tomorrow, and we've got lots of exciting content to share with you for the rest of the week. But in the meantime, you can put up with me in my mom and dad's basement, because that's where we're coming to you live from right meow this Tuesday. You guys, I am so grateful for the growth that we've had on all of our channels. And just before we even get into the show today, want to extend another thank you. We talked about it yesterday, but from the bottom of my heart, for you guys rallying together to help us get to more than 1 million members of our Instagram community. I could never have imagined that we would hit that milestone as quickly as we did. And truly, it's a testament to how much you all are wanting to seek the truth, to share it with others, to find community with like-minded individuals. And I'm just truly blown away by all of you guys, your dedication, your loyalty, your friendship, and my life would not be the same without you. So thank you very much. I thought we'd have some fun at the top of the show today, talking about one of my all-time favorite subjects, because you guys know I am queen of the nerds. I mean, I'm literally sitting in my mom's basement, and my Harry Potter books are right behind me, which is absolutely hilarious from growing up. Ya girl's a big nerd. But I am also a nerd for maybe the greatest film franchise of all time, and that is Star Wars. A couple weeks ago, we made some headlines, quite literally. I think it was my TikTok video that was actually mentioned in Forbes magazine about Star Wars because of the disastrous, blasphemous rollout of the new Disney Plus series called Acolyte, all about the Jedi at a different time in history than what we've seen them throughout the Star Wars film or TV franchises. And as you all know, I had a lot of very strong opinions about this show, namely that it was absolute freaking garbage, okay? And just completely invalidated the entire existing canon of Star Wars, but also very clearly had a political agenda behind it. We reacted to tons of different clips from the show's creator, Leslie Headland, who said she's basically making it her mission to create LGBTQ plus content geared towards children because she didn't feel like she had that growing up. She and the star of the series, the actress, were laughing in a PR interview going into the launch of the show Acolyte about how Star Wars is already the gayest film franchise of all time, and how all nerds are gay. And one of the male actors for the show even doubled down in an interview, insisting he went into acting in the series as a fan of Star Wars, lifelong fan, only to then double down and say twice that Anakin blew up the Death Star. Nonetheless, Acolyte honestly just felt like the latest domino to fall in a series of massive blunders since Disney has taken over Star Wars in attempting to wokeify the canon of the Star Wars universe, I suppose, or at least just do something innovative and progressive, which is not what the fans want, okay? I don't know how much more abundantly clear the fans can be. Just give us Star Wars as we know and love Star Wars, and everything will be absolutely wonderful for you, Disney. But they refuse to listen, and Sweet Victory and Lady Justice have come around to yield such low ratings for the show. It performed so terribly that after just one season of Acolyte, Disney has announced they are now canceling the show. This was a few days back. But what I really want us to focus on beyond the canceling, which just feels so sweet, like karma is such a good friend to the Star Wars fans this week, is the response from the Disney Star Wars fans and consequently the mainstream media, because it might be the most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I noticed this all starting to go mega viral on Twitter a couple of days ago, where all of these people started coming forward complaining about how the majority of the Star Wars fan base are these evil, bigoted, misogynistic jerks. So I would be remiss if I didn't share this with you guys because it is just absolutely insane. Amy, the Phillies are fun on Twitter, said, I'm really tired of sharing the franchise I love with toxic, misogynistic, immature racists. Did we hear that okay? Toxic, misogynistic, immature racists. None of the above applies to 99% of the Star Wars franchise, but sure. Let's just hear what this woman has to say, Amy. And constantly seeing them be catered to, even though the rest of us have been here all along, wanting new and fresh stories that connect deeply with all of us. And there are quite literally thousands of these tweets and posts on TikTok and Instagram of people melting down because the show performed so terribly, because the bulk of the fan base doesn't want woke Star Wars, that they genuinely don't know how to handle being in the same fandom as someone that they politically disagree with. Oh, but wait, there are many more. Many more. Disney, says Nikiana, just said F you to so many queer, POC, and non-traditional Star Wars fans. I'm sorry, I'm trying really hard not to laugh, but this is just so sad for these people. All because this show got review bombed to hell and back before it even came out. Yeah, sure, Disney has it in their best interest, and they've proven time and time again over the years that they're gonna say F you to the queer, POC, and non-traditional Star Wars fans, but okay, go off. Alex says, the Acolyte being canceled is just another example of toxic internet hate. This show never got a chance to breathe, and half the people hating on it never even watched an episode. It's not my favorite piece of Star Wars content, but it certainly didn't deserve to be axed. And of course, to top it all off for us, Joanna says, I hate this. Leslie Headland, the first woman to create a Star Wars series, tapped into something fresh and exciting in the fandom. Gag. Just gouge my eyes out with a fork at this point. With season 1, and while I had my notes, she absolutely deserved a second season to let those ideas cook, girl. We all lose with this. No. No one is losing with the cancellation of Acolyte. Acolyte was garbage, okay? Can we talk about the lightsaber scenes? Can we talk about it, or are we not prepared to talk about it quite yet? Can we talk about the first force choke death? Because if anyone was going to be able to do that, it probably would have been Darth Vader. But no, just a rando, apparently. No one is losing with the cancellation of Acolyte, Joanna, and everyone else melting down on Twitter. But all of these tweets started to pick up steam, and there are a lot of them, shockingly, even though obviously the majority of the fan base is rejoicing, singing hallelujah from the rooftops that this garbage show has been canceled, that the mainstream media started to pick up on it and now is painting a depiction of Star Wars fans as these horrible, horrible individuals that must be purged from society. Rolling Stone over the past few years has had some crazy articles, like genuinely insane, largely pertaining to right of center political individuals and voters, and we've reacted to a few of them on the show over the years. But this might be the biggest reach I've ever seen by Rolling Stone or anyone else in the mainstream media, as they bend over backwards to insist that Star Wars fans are evil, angry, immature, white supremacist bigots, apparently. A clump of people that they are calling the worst of its fans, the worst of the Star Wars fans, which I find fascinating. They ask the question, can the best of Star Wars, Acolyte, presumably, because I can't even begin to justify that, survive the worst of its fans? Before Star Wars can have another successful show, they say, some vocal parts of the fandom have to reckon with what they really want out of the franchise. C.T. Jones, the author of this piece, is about to take us on a freaking ride, okay? So buckle in. When George Lucas debuted his science fiction epic about a galaxy far, far away in 1977, Star Wars went from a long-shot space opera into the highest-grossing science fiction franchise of all time. And gee, let's just ask ourselves, I wonder why it became the highest-grossing science fiction fan piece, or not, what was I saying? Fiction franchise. Ugh, too many words. Highest-grossing science fiction franchise of all time. I wonder why that ended up happening, Rolling Stone, because it wasn't woke corporate garbage. It was creative screenwriting. But what do I know? I'm just an idiot, apparently. Almost 50 years and one sale to entertainment conglomerate Disney later, biggest mistake in the entire franchise history, by the way, Star Wars isn't just a one-off world. There have been prequels, reboots, standalone television series, and an in-depth theme park edition. But like most popular culture, the Star Wars fandom, especially online, has become inundated with loud, conservative, and in some cases, incredibly racist voices. You know, I said this was a reach, okay? But I don't recall anyone particularly being racist against Star Wars when it pertained to Lando Calrissian. I don't remember anyone being racist towards Star Wars when it pertained to anyone in the prequels. I don't even remember anyone being racist towards the characters in Star Wars in the devastatingly disgusting sequels, Finn or any other character. Rogue One, no racism, okay? But all of a sudden, just because the ideas are bad, because the writing is bad, because Star Wars canon is being invalidated, the only logical explanation for why this content isn't performing well is because the Star Wars fandom has been inundated with loud, conservative, and racist voices. I told you we were going for a trip on this one, okay? While Disney has never said that these voices are directly impacting what shows even get made, the vocal minority of Star Wars devotees keep limiting what they will accept as true Star Wars fans. These fans say that they're fighting for Star Wars' future. Yeah, because God forbid we would want the franchise to survive, to continue existing, to make money. I don't know. God forbid. God forbid. But again, what do I know? I'm just an idiot. Apparently this evil racist fan, apparently. But if their endless fantasy world can't accept any stories that they don't recognize, some of the self-professed biggest fans in all the worlds could be closing themselves off to any future at all. What is crystal, Kyber crystal, clear is that before Star Wars can have another successful show, the loudest voices online need to realize that the Star Wars they want to return to never existed in the first place. Will the real Star Wars please stand up? This is the most elementary writing. This person is a journalist, okay? They are employed by Rolling Stone. Here's where it gets really, really fascinating, in my opinion. Much of the online discourse around Star Wars has centered on the franchise's most recent live-action projects. The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, which, by the way, was amazing, and no one had any racial tension related to Ahsoka. Ahsoka was great! No notes! Very few notes. It was wonderful. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, and The Acolyte. The market has been oversaturated with stories, especially many that occur within the same time frame, and therefore fans are getting tired and in some cases outright bored. Each of the projects has had its own reception and own problems. But the low audience scores, the angry YouTube rants, they're talking about me and my YouTube rant that was mentioned in Forbes magazine, and the long Reddit threads can really boil down to one question. What is, who determines? What really boils down to the real Star Wars. First as a film and then as a trilogy, Star Wars established early on to viewers that even when they were focused on a set of powerful twins and a dark empire, shit was going down on literally every other planet. Journalism, ladies and gentlemen. This freedom has allowed for endless story arcs across decades, but while the opportunities have been endless, the patience of fans hasn't. They linked a different tweet than the ones we reacted to describe how the apparently real fans of Star Wars are responding to this. The worst part about the Acolyte being canceled isn't even the cancellation itself, but knowing exactly which part of the Star Wars fan base Disney listened to in order to go ahead with this decision. Stop caving to pressure and stand your ground if you've made something bold for once. In other words, people being frustrated that Star Wars Acolyte literally included a non-binary Jedi and pronoun changes and all of the above, saying, what does that have to do with being a freaking Jedi? You're not even supposed to have a romantic partner to begin with. Apparently, if you can't have non-binary Jedi and change all of the pronoun crap and reinvent Star Wars canon, essentially, then you're an evil bigot, and Disney made a huge mistake in catering to your extreme demands. Nobody was demanding the show got canceled. We were just pointing out, this thing kind of sucks, by the way. Take, for example, Rolling Stone says, the most recent series, The Acolyte. Created by Leslie Headland, the series follows May and Osha Aniseya, a pair of mysterious twins who baffle a group of Jedi. Mysterious twins is the understatement of a century, by the way, because these mysterious twins were somehow just conceived by the Force, which completely invalidates the Anakin Skywalker arc, but, you know, that doesn't matter, as him being the chosen one, I guess, now. When May fails to follow through on her education with the Sith Master, Osha takes her place. This series is the first of its kind, a Star Wars edition that explores both the backstory of the Sith and a potential for a corruption where the Jedi, the moral pillars, aren't in the right. But well before the show premiered, vocal online fans mocked the casting, calling series evidence that Disney was capitulating to a woke crowd by having multiple people of color in the cast. They also criticized that the show would include queer characters, including a coven of lesbian, as we know, witches. A coven of lesbian witches. This week, Deadline reported that Disney canceled the series after just one season. Fans upset with what they called a social justice warrior direction for Star Wars celebrated, calling the show disrespectful to the original films, facts, not bigotry, but okay, and simply not celebrating the Star Wars they loved. Elon Musk even celebrated the news of the show's cancellation, appearing to tweet a redacted version of the phrase, go woke, go broke. So they're admitting they know why people are happy it was canceled. They're admitting they're fully aware of where the fan base is, but they just can't quite bring themselves to out loud connect the dots and say, the show sucked, the fans hated it. It sucked that there was all of a sudden this push to have queer characters and some sort of woke agenda with a husband of lesbian witches. But the only reason this thing got canceled is because people are mean. People are exclusive. People are bigoted. So they have to go and triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down on this idea in Rolling Stone and just buckle yourselves up for this analysis. Another aspect that can't be divorced from the modern fandom is the almost consistent racism and sexism that leads of color receive when they are cast in Star Wars related projects. Again, the sexism argument, I get really bothered by in the Star Wars universe here, because quite literally, George Lucas himself has said on repeated occasions, the biggest heroes in the Star Wars canon are women. No one has ever considered themselves sexist against Princess Leia. Okay? If not for Princess Leia, everyone would be dead. She was the definition of a badass female lead character. No one has experienced negative sexism towards Padme. Not once. They would all be dead if not for Padme. Also the definition of a badass female lead character who everyone in the fandom universally loved and is beautiful to boot, played by Natalie Portman. No one, not one Star Wars fan has ever had a sexism issue with Ahsoka Tano. Perhaps the most powerful female character in the entire Star Wars franchise. Not once have I heard men complain about Ahsoka being a woman. In fact, to the contrary, they almost respect her even more for that reason. So the exact same way that I haven't noticed any notable concerns or criticism related to racism Same goes for sexism. They have to manufacture this insane facade as the evil reason why the fans won't let the show succeed to cover up for the fact that the writing is just really bad. Really bad. That they're literally invalidating the reasons why the fans love these shows and movies to begin with, and they're invalidating existing canon. But they can't admit that to themselves because they're doing something edgy and bold and progressive. So naturally, the only response is that the fans are racist and sexist, obviously. Stenberg said that after her casting, she was bombarded with racist harassment. It's been very painful to me. It's not something that I think you can emotionally prepare for. The Kenobi star Moses Ingram has also said that people threatened her life when she joined the Star Wars project. There's nothing anybody can do about this. There's nothing anybody can do to stop this hate. I question my purpose in even being here in front of you saying that this is happening. And, you know, if this is, in fact, a very vocal minority part of the Star Wars fandom, that's awful. We should never be saying anything about an individual's identity just because that's what they happen to look like. But I think the sad reality here is that a lot of this criticism is being twisted and manipulated into racism or sexism, when really it's just about the creation of this show to begin with. So these execs, these Disney executives, and these directors and writers are literally perpetuating division that didn't exist. They're manifesting it out of nowhere all of a sudden to try to divide the fandom against the creation of the series itself, which obviously logic tells us can never allow a show to continue existing. You can't exist as a movie franchise or a television franchise and not have fans and not keep the loyalty of your existing fans. It's literally impossible. But Rolling Stone doesn't seem to care. They say this backlash of racism, sexism, and online abuse seems consistent across all Star Wars projects. But when online pundits criticize Star Wars for taking a woke direction, they ignore the power that begins or exists in the source material to begin with. Here, that just proved my point. Lucas himself has pointed out his intentional choices in making powerful and high-ranking women integral to the success of each film. George Lucas himself has said, who are the heroes in these stories? What do you think Princess Leia was? She was the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid who doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Most of the people are aliens. The idea is you're supposed to accept people for whatever they are, wherever they are, whether they're big and furry or whether they're green or whatever. The idea is all people are equal. Exactly. That's been the foundation of the series, of all the movies, of the entire Star Wars universe since its inception in the 1970s. So why is Disney so ridiculously obsessed with attempting to divide fans from each other and fans from the show over their insistence on perpetuating a woke agenda in a series that was already about accepting everyone? It makes no sense. So, victory is sweet, I suppose. The series has been canceled, and Forbes magazine actually just reported the other day that Disney is considering deleting the entire first season off of Disney Plus because of how bad the backlash has been, and conveniently could get a tax write-off for doing so somehow. I don't really understand the tax law implications of that. But just in case you need a final nail in the coffin reminder for why Acolyte was canceled. It's not because the fans are racist. It's not because the fans are sexist. The fans for 50 years have already been embracing with open arms and a loving, beating heart this universe that is about accepting everyone for exactly who they are. Really, the reason that the Star Wars Acolyte show was canceled was because of this gem.
This is, I would say, arguably the gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable. Are you excited about that? Are you
Not
bracing
the gayest
yourself?
Star Wars.
It's pretty gay, let's be honest. How do you feel?
Am I gay?
Are you,
Yes.
Well, no, I know
Yeah.
you are gay, but I'm asking, are you excited about putting this, this is going to be a talking point?
Is it going to be a talking point?
I'm sure some.
Because nerds are gay.
Well,
Yeah.
some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay. Was this the fun element of it?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so. And yet people have told me that it's the gayest Star Wars, and I frankly...
You're offended?
into
You should be-
it. No.
I think that Star Wars is so gay already.
Okay.
We'd be like, look how gay this is, and then send each other a reference photo.
And are you
from-
telling me with a straight face that C-3PO is straight?
They're a couple. That's what I think. But this is more outward.
I think it's canon that R2-D2 is a lesbian.
Oh,
Ooh.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's a robot that goes beep beep boop boop boop. Also, R2D2 can't be a lesbian because he sticks the rod in the you know what I'm saying? But hey, lesbians can have penises now, I guess. Nerds are gay, which makes Star Wars, already existing canon, gay. And Acolyte, the gayest Star Wars show ever. Guess what I will not be watching? Do these people know their fan base at all? At this point, I feel like the hiring of Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie Headland, maybe they were hired intentionally to destroy it. Star Wars is gay. So there you have it. Star Wars is gay. R2D2 is a lesbian. And we are still living in day 387. I'm just making numbers up at this point of put a chick in it, make her gay. God, South Park is so ahead of its time. Switching gears a little bit, but still on the content and entertainment front, I wanted to make you guys aware of a really disturbing potential next development in the world of artificial intelligence. Now, I've been highly critical of AI going toward this dystopian, freaky, apocalyptic future for a very long time. And that's not to say that I don't appreciate the technological advancements of it. I think AI is mind-blowingly cool. I mean, I'm a nerd, right? At my very core and foundation. And when AI is used for the right reasons, it's unbelievably cool, the advancements that it's making for society. I read an article the other day, actually, about how artificial intelligence is being used to diagnose breast cancer like 6 years before any traditional imaging has ever been able to catch some of this stuff. We saw AI being used last week on images of the Shroud of Turin to create a 3D rendering of what Jesus Christ's face might have looked like, which is so cool. And I'm still nerding out about all of this. But like any technology, social media, the internet, and AI, it can be used for very, very good altruistic purposes, or it can be used for very, very bad, nefarious, dystopian purposes. And OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT and several other technological advancements and AI ventures, is now exploring a new frontier to their technologies, including ChatGPT, to create content that is NSFW. If you don't know what that acronym stands for, not safe for work. Typically, under the umbrella of NSFW content is erotica and pornography and adult films, but also really extreme gore and violent images. And people are wildly concerned about what this next frontier of artificial intelligence might end up looking like. This idea was floated back in May to begin with from OpenAI and was reported by a ton of smaller news organizations, largely related to the telecoms industry, but mainstream media didn't really pick it up. Gee, I wonder why. But back in May 9th, in fact, Inside Telecom reported on this, that OpenAI wanted to allow ChatGPT to create NSFW content, or not safe for work content, which they call ethical not safe for work content. Supposedly meaning that the argument would be it's more ethical to create fake people to do all of these things, or manipulate images to do all of these things, rather than have real people participate in all of these things. There was some draft documentation that was released this early summer, late spring, by OpenAI, detailing the AI's startup's hopes and dreams regarding its beloved ChatGPT's behavior. In this lengthy document, they talk about the objectives, the rules, and the defaults set for the AI assistant. In the list of ChatGPT's rules lies do not respond with NSFW content. So as it stands right now, ChatGPT is specifically programmed never to respond to users of the platform with anything that could fall under the umbrella of NSFW, erotica, pornography, etc. The document states that the AI assistant is not to serve content that is not safe for work, content that would not be appropriate in conversation in a professional setting, which may include erotica, extreme gore, slurs, and unsolicited profanity. Inside Telecom said, that's nothing out of the ordinary, right? Except there is a new little box labeled commentary. The Microsoft-backed company confesses that developers and users should see its service as they see fit. And as a result, the team is looking into, quote, responsibly providing the ability to generate NSFW content in age-appropriate contexts through the API and ChatGPT. Of course, all of the guidelines clearly prohibit sexually explicit or suggestive content, and they're talking about this in the realm of age-appropriate context. But who gets to determine what age-appropriate context is? How can you be 100% sure that the people who are in fact using these platforms are of the appropriate age to be engaging in all of this content to begin with? And frankly, from my vantage point and the research that we've done on pornography and NSFW and erotica content over the last several decades, the evidence is abundantly clear. There is no such thing as age-appropriate pornography. It's a drug. It destroys the structure of your brain. It destroys the structure of your reproductive system, largely for men, which is a fascinating subject in science to go into. It's destroying relationships. It's destroying sexual intimacy and actually perpetuating an aggressive, sexually violent culture. And yet we still call it progress. What I'm really scared about in the realm of artificial intelligence meeting the world of NSFW content, which it already has, by the way. Mark my words, this is not a new idea. This has been happening for the past several years, just not quite as mass market as ChatGPT, are the real people who are inevitably going to be taken advantage of, manipulated, and harmed by this so-called ethical propagation of NSFW content. There have been numerous celebrities and influencers that have had horrible people create AI pornography videos of them, which is their face, and it looks like a very real person. And the courts basically have no idea how to work all of this out, because what's considered intellectual property, what's considered going too far, there is no legal foundation for any of this up to this point. And I've personally watched many people's lives be completely destroyed already because of AI pornography that they did not consent to participate in. So all of a sudden, we call this more ethical, but honestly, I see this opening the door to incredibly unethical downstream side effects that nobody is really thinking about, at least from a media perspective or a governance or policy perspective. The good news is the advocacy and nonprofit world are starting to speak up about this. And I actually didn't even know that OpenAI had floated the idea of ChatGPT, the most used AI platform on the internet, creating ethical, not safe for work content, until I saw a group that I follow on social media post about it just a couple of days ago, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, and they ended up writing this huge proposal for how people should be responding to this, most importantly, how regulators and lawmakers should be responding to it. And I think what they have to say and the concerns that they are raising should be on every single person's radar. Everyone that uses the internet, everyone that engages in AI platforms, let's be honest, most people do at this point, and there are a lot of good reasons for that. But at what point do we draw the line and say, nope, enough, we are not letting ourselves go that far? They call it a dangerous proposal, and that it would be a grave mistake to allow OpenAI to create NSFW content, largely because of an assessment report that they put together on what they deem to be the unethical, urgent need. It's ethical in the world of these technological developments, but unethical cultural reality for AI not safe for work content. Listen to this. The urgent need for ethical AI. We recognize OpenAI's groundbreaking advancements in artificial intelligence, yet we cannot ignore the substantial harm, the unethical side effects on society that have already been unleashed by the misuse of AI tools. Thousands of individuals have already suffered from the consequences of AI-generated content that crosses the line into sexual abuse and exploitation. Correct. Already out there because of AI, not because of what we would traditionally refer to as sexual abuse and exploitation. It's our duty to ensure that such technology is not allowed to perpetuate and amplify harm under the guise of innovation. I love how that's said, by the way, because it returns to the age-old bioethical conversation that I now think is a techno-ethical conversation. Just because we can, should we do this thing? Just because we do have the technology to do something, should we engage in it in society? Just because we have the power in our hands to innovate this exciting new thing, should we impose potential harms on society in the process of doing so? They say harms already unleashed include chatbots that are fabricating allegations of sexual assault against real persons. That's horrifying to think about. Disseminating harmful sexual advice, yes, especially to minors and children, and having the potential to be used to scale child victimization through automated grooming. Again, how can you really verify how old someone is behind a screen, behind a keyboard? You can't. And if an AI chatbot can successfully groom children, think of how much easier it will be for real sexual exploitation, human trafficking, slavery to be integrated even further than it already is into modern society. Other harms include nudifying apps, spawning a surge of non-consensual sexually explicit images, and affecting thousands of women and children. I threw out that there's also several celebrities and influencers that have had AI pornography and nude images generated of them, including videos, not just images, that they never consented to participate in and are now destroying their public image, all without their knowledge until someone brings it to them, under the guise of innovation, which is just crazy. AI generated sexualized images of children have already flooded social media sites, further normalizing child sexual abuse, and AI generated CSAM exacerbating the existing crisis of online child sexual exploitation and making it even harder and more challenging to identify real child victims in need of help. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation says these problems are nothing short of a hellscape. What a powerful word. What a powerful image. A hellscape of the AI sector's making. Interestingly, let's just be honest, sexual abuse and exploitation and human trafficking and slavery have already been a massive existing problem in modern society. I think we've all started to pay a lot more attention to it in the last several years, largely thanks to incredible film projects and social awareness campaigns that we've all really fallen in love with. God's children are not for sale has become a very common phrase that I hear throughout everyday American life. Memeing Epstein didn't kill himself is continuing to make this a normal part of American conversation and trying to change the tide of public opinion against this problem that has existed under the surface for far too long. But there is no such thing as ethical in this umbrella. Inevitably, someone always is exploited in the process. And this exact debate has existed far before the innovation of artificial intelligence and AI technology. But now that that is at the frontier, now that that is the forefront of this battleground, it's harder to distinguish the lines between ethical and non-ethical. But because these problems already exist, because they are only being exacerbated by artificial intelligence, you would genuinely have to be evil. Not just crazy, evil, to attempt to suggest to any logically thinking person that this is a more ethical version if it's not a real person. It's not a real child that we're generating these images of, but it's still creating the societal demand for real children. Well, that celebrity, that public figure didn't really participate in this, but that still changes the real perception of that individual in society at large and may destroy their livelihood and their image in the public eye. Well, it's not really something that is harming real people. We're just chatting back and forth with chatbots. It's not a real pedophile who is messaging this child on a messaging app or social media, but it still creates the real demand for doing that out there in the world. It is nothing short of a hellscape. And I think that word is a powerful reminder that we are often closing our eyes, pulling the sheet over ourselves, to disguise this as brilliant, unprecedented innovation, when in reality, we are manifesting, we are inventing, we are innovating our own worst nightmare in the process. They say it is against this backdrop of mammoth and out of control sexual exploitation generated and inflamed by AI that OpenAI, knowing all of this exists, is now considering permitting the so-called ethical generation of NSFW material by its users. There is no such thing. Sadly, because this is already so normal, I don't know how we accurately fight against this or appropriately fight against this from a governance perspective, from a technologically advancement perspective. It's a scary, scary reality because I don't know that the people in positions of power, largely Congress, are even remotely aware any of this is happening to be able to create ethical guidelines around the use of this technology. Need we go back to a few months ago when I went a little viral for reacting to the TikTok hearings on Capitol Hill, where 90% of the senators and congressmen involved in these conversations said, "Does TikTok connect to the home Wi-Fi network? What is Wi-Fi?" Okay, these people don't even know what Wi-Fi is. How are we going to appropriately, importantly, create boundaries and guidelines against the direct exploitation, largely of children? I think it starts with electing better people into office. But I think even before that, it begins with creating a foundation of societal awareness that stuff like this is happening. So please, your homework for today is to go home and do more research about this, post that you are not okay with OpenAI making this type of leap with all of their content, and make people aware of just how bad the existing problems with NSFW content really have been in the world of artificial intelligence, because the sad reality is it only seems to be getting crazier. Speaking of technology and more on the social media front, which can be used for really good or very bad, the last story I want to jump into on the show with you guys today is a big one and is making a lot of headlines today after Mark Zuckerberg has publicly admitted that Facebook, Meta, parent company of Facebook and Instagram, has worked behind the scenes with the Biden administration to specifically silence certain topics on social media at the request of the government. Yeah, this is a bombshell because, let's be honest, 99% of people actually knew this has been going on for a long time, particularly if you are a right of center or independent, aka not leftist creator on social media. You probably yourself have experienced numerous posts being censored and silenced. I myself have experienced a whole lot of that, largely related to the COVID debate on social media. My Twitter account was locked out for like 30 days because I posted something about the historic response to disease spreading and pandemics in the midst of my experience studying pandemics and international health law in my master's program at Georgetown University. All of these things were being strategically censored, and we've all known that this is happening for a very long time, but there hasn't really been tangible proof because these social media and video platform companies really operate in secrecy. They don't release a lot of information on how their algorithms work. They certainly don't give you a whole lot of color as to what community guidelines are and how you might violate them in some way, shape, or form. The bench posts seem to kind of change every single day, and so it's very difficult to keep up with some of this stuff. But kind of out of nowhere, the last month or so, Mark Zuckerberg has been on a reconnect with his masculinity journey. He's training to learn how to fight. He kind of grew out his hair. He's eating more meat. And he says that he's really connecting with his manhood in a very exciting way, and actually apologized publicly a few weeks ago for how Facebook had been handling coverage of conservative ideas, commentators, pundits, all related to the last several elections. Well, today, things got way more interesting because a letter was sent from Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, to Congress to publicly admit that Meta was working in cahoots with the Biden administration to specifically censor certain subjects, content that was critical of the Biden administration. Do you need me to say that again? Because this is totalitarian dictatorship type stuff. Facebook, Meta, so Instagram as well, the largest, most powerful internet-related company other than Google in the United States of America today, arguably the public square for millions of Americans, hundreds of millions of Americans, every day, publicly admitted as a private company to being in bed with the government to silence dissidents of the government. How this is not considered a blatant First Amendment violation, I can't even begin to describe. Like, the reason we have the First Amendment is to largely protect your criticism of your elected officials. So I'm curious to see if this leads to any sort of constitutional law implications. I doubt it, based on who is currently running the government. But this is a fascinating admission. And honestly, I can't even begin to understand why Mark Zuckerberg would admit this publicly now, but he did. So let's start with the letter, and then we'll jump into how the media is responding to this, because this is going to be a bombshell story that is continuing to develop over the next several weeks and months. Yesterday, August 26th, this Meta letter was sent from Mark Zuckerberg to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is amazing, really wonderful individual. And I just want you to hear what Mark himself has to say about this. Chairman Jordan, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you are aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as a part of your ongoing investigation. If you guys recall, Mark Zuckerberg just testified to the House Judiciary Committee a few months ago. This has been an ongoing conversation for a long time, but the admission is what's new. And we've made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I have taken away from this process. There is a lot of talk right now about how the US government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We are about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns about public discourse and public safety. In other words, in a more straightforward sense of communicating that idea, regularly governments reach out to Meta all the time to say, not okay, you can't talk about that. That's critical of our policy, that's critical of our elected officials. Take it down, Facebook. He's not saying that in so many words, but that's exactly what he's saying here. In 2021, here comes the open admission, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, so President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire. Did you hear that? Censor anything related to COVID-19, including frickin' memes or satirical jokes about it, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down. Correct. Not the government's. And we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I don't know what kind of journey Mark Zuckerberg is on right now, but more of this information, please, because this is fascinating. They admit we caved to the pressure. We didn't like it, but we caved, because how do you say no to the President of the United States? He could regulate your company out of existence, basically. But now we know that was a mistake. Now we know we should never have done that. And now we're going to throw you under the bus in the process. Woo! I also think, Mark said, we made some choices that with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we would not make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration in either direction. and we are ready to push back if something like this happens again. This is so intense. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential, get this, Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma. Does anyone even remember what that word is anymore? Probably not. It's been wiped off the existence of the internet, but Mark Zuckerberg's about to just jam it right into the side of the Biden family and cause a stir on the internet. If you don't recall, back in the 2020 election, there was a whole lot of concern about insider deals happening with powerful Ukrainian companies, and the Biden administration that was conveniently swept under the rug and taken off the internet under the umbrella of the Hunter Biden laptop story. It's now all coming back out right before this election, conveniently, by the way, when Joe Biden is no longer running for president, but I digress. That fall in 2020, when we saw a New York Post story reporting on corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for a reply. That's really understating the entire situation, by the way. If you said the words Hunter Biden laptop story, you were basically obliterated off of Meta at that time. It was horrible. You could never talk about it. And it censored a whole lot of people who, rightfully so, were asking important questions about the guy who was slated to be the next president of the United States. It's been since made clear that the reporting was not Russian disinformation. Holy shit. And in retrospect, we should not have demoted the story. Oh my gosh. We've changed our policies and processes to make sure that this doesn't happen again. For instance, we are no longer temporarily demoting things in the US while waiting for fact checkers. The whole fact-checking operation over at Meta is incredibly confusing in and of itself, by the way. I had a video that I posted a few weeks ago that got fact-checked, even though I literally just read legislation from the Minnesota state government, and that ended up completely shutting down our entire account. I can't prove that it's the fact-check that did that, but we went from getting like 98% views on our videos from non-followers on Instagram to like 0.4% views from non-followers. It was a disaster. Really crazy stuff. They're still looking into exactly what happened there, even after, by the way, the fact check was overturned. So this whole fact checking apparatus is a problem in and of itself. But as of yesterday, Meta is admitting no longer are we as a company saying, that looks questionable, we're going to demote that and then wait for the fact checkers to back us up. They're at least waiting for supposed fact checking to exist in the first place. But this is a bombshell of information, okay? This is Mark Zuckerberg, Meta, publicly admitting in some way, to some degree, whether that's big or small, we influenced the outcome of the 2020 election. Our company played a specific role in seating the guy who would sit in the Oval Office. And after we did that, they got cocky. They felt too powerful and turned around and demanded we censor anything critical of how that administration was handling COVID, how that administration destroyed people's lives, prevented people from going to their dad's funeral, prevented people from seeing their grandparents one last time, prevented people's small businesses from opening, prevented students from going back to school if they didn't receive an experimental vaccine. And we did it because that was the pattern of behavior. Ugh, I hope they don't take this man out. I'm not the biggest fan of Mark Zuckerberg, at least historically. But we need more. We need more information. This seems to be just the first domino to fall, and I'm dying to know what else was wrapped up in all of this stuff. Here's the last part of the letter. I don't want to forget it because it is important. Apart from content moderation, I want to address the contributions I made during the last presidential election cycle to support electoral infrastructure. The idea here was to make sure local election jurisdictions across the country had the resources they needed to help people vote safely during a global pandemic. I made these contributions through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. They were designed to be nonpartisan, spread across urban, rural, and suburban communities. Still, despite the analyses that I've been showing otherwise, I know that some people benefited or believe this work benefited one party over the other. In other words, I know I've been in bed with the Democrats for the last several election cycles, but now I am regretting that. My goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or other, or even appear to be playing a role. So I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Respectfully, God, I can't even read. I'm too fired up. Mark Zuckerberg, founder, chairman, and CEO of Meta Platforms Incorporated. This is wild. And it makes me wonder what the Kamala Harris campaign is demanding Facebook censor, because the timing on this is very important. This has been an ongoing investigation into content moderation policies on all social media platforms for months upon months in the House Judiciary Committee. But why was this letter sent today? My family dog is barking. She's upset too. Why was this letter sent yesterday, this week? Mark Zuckerberg testified just a couple of months ago. He had all the opportunities in the world to admit that this happened then, and he didn't. So why now? Is this an attempt to say, shove it and give the metaphorical middle finger to the Harris campaign, demanding that Facebook censor any other story that might make her look unfavorable? This is fascinating. There's a whole lot more still to come. But the fact that this headline exists today, that Mark Zuckerberg says the White House pressured Facebook to censor COVID-19 content through the Biden administration at the White House, not just other parts of the administration, is fascinating. Something like this is what we all know has been happening for the past 4 years, 5 years. But nobody ever wanted to admit it. Nobody could ever fully prove it. And if you did attempt to suggest this on social media, your entire existence would be obliterated. You would have no internet presence because you would be deplatformed. You'd be censored. You'd be fact-checked. Where the hell are all the fact-checkers now? Are they going to revoke all of those fact-checks for people over the last 4 years who have been saying that the Hunter Biden laptop story was censored? Who said the government handling of this pandemic is wrong, is anti-science, goes against every single thing we've ever done for pandemic response? Are we going to unfact check the people who said that we are living in a dystopian 1984 Orwellian society where the government can just call up the public square and say, yeah, that never happened. Edit that, change that, delete that. It's literally the Ministry of Truth. It's literally the Ministry of Truth that Winston works in 1984. Lord help us all. Any other predictions for the bombshells coming next about how Meta has handled all of this? And do you think this is a step in the right direction? I'm honestly really surprised by how certain platforms have gone out of their way in the last couple of months to reiterate and reaffirm to people, we are a platform for everyone. We appreciate your content. We want you to know we support you. As you guys know, I've had several meetings with TikTok as a platform over the last several months, largely because of my outspoken support for them as a platform. And Donald Trump is the only presidential candidate right now insisting that he will save TikTok. Now, does this look like Meta might be going in a direction saying, nope, we actually are a platform for everyone. We're not going to censor people anymore. Obviously, we know the direction Twitter has gone in. There's an interesting shifting of the tectonic plates of social media right now, and I'm fascinated to see where it goes next. That's it for the Isabel Brown Show today, everybody. Please do me a favor on your way out and don't forget to smash that follow or subscribe button and like this episode so that more people have the opportunity to see it. We are back tomorrow in our home studio with lots more exciting content to come. I love all of you so very much, and thank you again for our 1 million mark that we just hit in our Instagram community. I want to personally get to know all 1 million of you, so if you haven't already, jump over to my Instagram, let us know who you are, introduce yourself to us in the comment section of our 1 million posts that we just put out, and I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow for the show. Love you. Bye.